I was kind of spinning out of control. I just had kind of checked out. And I just laid on the floor and I just cried out to God and I said, I don't know what to do, just help. We moved around a lot when I was a child. And so I didn't have support systems. I didn't have friends. I don't have any childhood friends. So I spent a lot of time alone. I've lived most of my life with depression and anxiety issues. I remember clear back till I was 2 and remember knowing that I was not lovable. I just grew up with those thoughts in my head and believing they were true. I actually have suicidal tendencies in my family. I'm not the only person. So yes, they recognized it, but didn't really know what to do about it. And then I had the same issues raising my children because I tried a lot of different things, but I didn't know how to deal with it. And so I didn't know how to teach them how to deal with it because they've had the same issues, all of my children. So I got pregnant right out of high school and at 18 with my son. And then at the age of 28, I was married and had 2 children by my husband. I think that my depression and anxiety peaked after my divorce, and I was kind of spinning out of control, and I did, after the divorce, was put into a mental institution for attempting suicide. I just had kind of checked out and was just trying to survive day to day. My son had been in Iraq in the war and had come home with traumatic brain injury and some other pretty serious PTSD issues. And then once he got home, he was in an accident on a 3-wheeler and broke both legs and both arms. And at that time, I happened to be, somebody had dropped off a child at my house that they weren't able to raise. And I was in school full time and working and had my own kids. And my son was sinking into depression. He did stick with trying to get help for about 5 years. He ended up getting married and having some kids, but the PTSD was, and the pain, the physical pain was more than he could bear, and he took his own life. When he did that, one of his children and her sisters, and her sister, were about ready to be put back into the foster system. Their mom was being put into a drug rehab, and they had nowhere to go. So they came and lived at my house. And I wanted to give the best to my grandkids. One of the main reasons that I didn't commit suicide or spin out of control more than I did was because I had children. And when you have children, you commit. I knew there was something else. I knew there was a hope. I was a Christian. I just didn't have the faith that God was who he said he was, who he says he is. I remember one time I went in my bathroom, which had no windows, complete darkness, complete quietness, and I just laid on the floor and I just cried out to God and I said, I don't know what to do, just help. I can look back at the things that changed in my life and see that moment was the place where things began. And so then the friend who came to this church invited me, and my response was, no, I don't like Christians. I hadn't gone to church in 10 years. I just didn't feel comfortable around people. I just felt judged, I guess. But my grandkids said, we want to go to church, Grandma, we want to go to church. And I said, why? And they said, because people at church are nice to us. And I said, okay. So we came to church. And I remember sitting in the back and coming in late and sneaking out fast for probably about the first year. But every time Rob preached, there was some little piece of hope, some piece of truth that I hadn't grasped before. And I don't know, I just started feeling myself kind of come alive. And so I went to a women's retreat. The women had gathered around and were praying for certain women. And it was beautiful. And they broke up and went their own separate ways. And as Kim walked by me, she said, if anybody else wants prayer, just say so. And I just looked up at her and I said, I do. And the women just started slowly gathering around and laid their hands on me. And then they started singing over me. And that was God truly speaking to his love to me, because music is my language. So I didn't feel hugely different inside that night. The next day we went home. I was driving back to Silverton, and all of a sudden I heard this voice, and it said, if your Father loves you and can give you good gifts on earth, how much more do you think I love you? And then I felt the most amazing presence, and it just kept pouring over me and pouring over me and pouring over me. At that moment, God's love became extremely personal. It changed every bit of my perspective on life. And then after that point, slowly looking at things from that different perspective. And I just became so hungry for God's word and for truth. And it's so available. God says that if we seek him, he will show himself to us. So I started just really seeking. I started praying, reading scriptures where God declared what his name is. I started going to a Bible study here at the church. It was like God had everything orchestrated. I just had to keep stepping towards him, and then he made my path go the way that it needed to get me out of where I was. I still struggle sometimes with depression and anxiety. This situation that we are in as a world right now is stressful. And I have to admit that I've gone back to some of my bad behaviors. But no matter how I feel, it's a very different situation now, because I know there's hope. You know, I've been hospitalized, I've been all that time feeling miserable. But the thing about knowing that there's some hope, when those times come that you feel things are so out of control, it's a temporary situation. Things change every day. If I had been successful at committing suicide, I would never have known true joy. Because since that time, I have experienced true deep joy. I have experienced freedom. I have experienced just things I never thought were possible.